Hello, Professor Pete here. It's week 3, lighting and rendering. Hopefully you've been having fun and finding something to do during the render times. It takes 5 minutes or so. We're going to talk about some tips and tricks, and then also just kind of refreshing ourselves and how to use Arnold and how to use shading in general. So I'm going to talk about adding textures, repeating textures under UV, duplicating shaders, active shade, and faster renderings. So let's have a quick look. Okay, so for adding textures, I'm just going to click on one of my shaders here. I'm going to select it so it shows up over here. And then you'll see over here, I have the map. So you double click on that, and then you can then pick the bitmap, and then it'll appear here once you click on bitmap. Here we can have a look at the size in the tiling. So it's tiled to 1:1. But if we look at the brick wall, you'll see that the brick wall on this is set to 4:4. So that's how I was able to tile it to 4:4. Hopefully this is just review for you, but under standard you can then go to materials and then make sure it's shaded materials with maps. That way you can see how it looks like in the viewport. Okay, so that's adding textures and repeating textures using the UVs. For duplicating shaders, this is pretty kind of fun and unique, but you just click and you can drag it on top of something here and then make a instance of it. And then you'd have another, then you rename it and you have another shader. Another quick thing too is you can just click and drag them over on top of the models from the shader, and then it'll attach the shader to that model, which is another convenient thing. Otherwise, you just push this one, assign material to selection. If you want to switch modes quickly, you can go from the slate material to the compact material pretty quickly there too. That's another quick tip. Active shade is, I don't know, really slow on my laptop, so I didn't use it. But over here under target, you go to active shade mode, and it'll produce a render view. And every time you move your camera, change the lights, it'll update the render. So again, it's pretty slow, so that's why I don't use it. And so hit play also to render it. Now active shade will start going. So active shade for me takes roughly 15 seconds, so that's kind of annoying for me. So I'm going to just go ahead and turn that off, and you can see here it's still going. So it's actually more than 15 seconds. But to speed up the renders, this is a really nice thing that sounds really simple. You just have to implement it. Let me just go ahead and stop this from rendering. So under production rendering and iterative, there's surprisingly not a lot of difference that I was able to find. It's got to be done manually, which I was surprised. In Maya, this is all done automatically for you. But under the Common and Arnold renderer, this is where you would change things. So the aperture width, I'll put you change to even 320 by 180 or 480 by 270. It reduces the render times a lot. So this is when you're just testing things out, making sure the textures look good and the lights look good. And then over on the Arnold renderer, you go ahead and change all of these samples. So right now it's set to 2 and 4 to 8 under transmission. Put these all to 1, and you'll notice a huge performance increase. You'll get tons of noise, but that's besides the point. We're not concerned about noise. We're just trying to make sure that the textures look okay. And so you would change these all to 1 on these fields. So camera, diffuse, specular, transmission, SSS. It just reduces the number of samples, and it just renders a lot faster. The very last thing is something that I, really was surprised how difficult it was to copy and paste different models. So Control V after you select it. Wow, Control V doesn't even work for me. Right click, and there you'll see clone, and you make it a copy. Change the name if you want, or an instance. So a copy is exact copy, and an instance is just a variation of the same one. So you can modify a little bit, and it still would retain it separately from the other one that you just copied from. So surprising, I was shortcut keys was really surprised that the shortcut keys didn't work for me. Yeah, even Shift doesn't work for me when I select it and drag it. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's my Maya shortcut keys coming in here. But that's all I wanted to show, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. I'm sure you all have even better tips that you could even share with me. But for the most part, those are some major things that I think really made it easier for me to work from. Oh, the very last thing too I forgot to mention was when I have an image on the plane and I want to add it as a surface, standard surface, I typically would start under the standard surface clay, and that's how I would start from. But otherwise, you probably don't want to set to clay, but clay was a really good start because there's not a lot of specularity and it worked out well. So that's all I've got. Hopefully I didn't confuse you anymore, and we'll see you in the next video. Keep doing your thing. Thanks.